everyone. So, we here at Damon's Wolf HQ are professional streamers, as I like to say, which means that my overlay broke. Just a little. Just a little, it broke. Nothing you guys will notice, but I'm sitting here. Hi! How are you? I'm sitting here like fixing it. And also, we got a subscriber while I was offline. So, I totally feel like we should throw up that awesome Vicar Amelia battle music. Just in honor of the sub that we got. Wow.
This is a test.
Just in honor of the sub we got while we were offline. I'm not sure if you guys could hear me there. Hello! Like I say all the time, we here at Damon's Wolf HQ are professional streamers, which is why we definitely don't break our stream overlay, which is a thing I did. And, awesome, okay. So what I was saying was I broke my stream overlay, so I was trying to fix it. It's not anything you guys will notice, but it'll kind of bother me. Hello, Dougies! It is going really well. I haven't seen you in a while, my friend. You came back on an interesting night. We are doing Bedtime. I'm really quiet. Okay. Is this better? Is it? I had to readjust my desk, so we may have to do a little bit of adjustment. So let me know if this sounds better. I think I'm peaking a little bit, so I also might just need to talk closer to my microphone. Yeah, I think this is actually a good setting here. Otherwise I'm going to start peaking really easily, especially when we start reading Charles's voice. Hocus Pocus, you may need to turn up your headset, your computer volume. Okay, cool. Hey, Dougies, good to see you, my friend. Good to see all of you. I am so pleased you are here. We'll let people... Excellent, that's what I like to hear. We'll let people kind of wander in before we get started here. Maybe I can try and fix my stream overlay on the fly. Lies? Damn lies? Statistics? Okay. I may break everything. Hold on. I may break literally everything. But I'm gonna do it live, because fuck it, we doing it live. I need to... You guys can't see what I'm doing, but I need to copy this. Yeah, you guys are getting this fun view of my various stuff. Yep, everything was black. I had to switch overlay settings. So give me a second. Let's see, there we go. There's that overlay that was missing there that was bothering me. I don't know why it broke. I have no idea. We'll just kind of... Yeah, it's fine. It's fine like that. It's fine. It's fine. No, you're not blind. I was messing around. My little, like... I wanted to be in a box. That's why I put myself in a box. I just wanted to be there. It made me happy to be there. I should really, like, rotate the box. You could blame a lot of things on the Texas infrastructure, Marvy. Absolutely could do that. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but part of my overlay broke and it was bothering me. So I have fixed it and now I feel better. And that's how that works. Okay. We still have some people wandering in. But, yeah, I got a new overlay set up yesterday. So I want it to work. And I want to be in a box. Though, now that I'm looking at it, that is the wrong aspect ratio for this particular thing,
Welcome
but it's
home,
fine.
Good Hunter.
Thank you so much for the follow, Ellie. It is mucho appreciated. Welcome home, Hunter. Can I? Slobs. Slobs, why are you such a slob? I'm kidding, I love you, slobs. Don't leave me. Don't leave me, slobs. Alright, we still have a few people wandering in, so we'll let them wander in. I'm actually surprised I didn't break more things today. I got a new monitor stand so that I can have both of my monitors up and off my desk. My fur babies are always mooches. I have one who is not trained at all because he's an anxiety dog and it's like impossible to train him. And he just will like snatch. Poor Julian. Let's make him suffer. Let's make him suffer waiting. It's fine. A little bit of ASMR there for you guys. But anyways, my that particular pupper, he a good boy, but he's an anxiety dog, which means he's like impossible to train. And oh, go away, Leap Motion controller. My Leap Motion is freaking out now. Oh my god, Moobot, go away. I keep trying to disable Moobot and it just does not want to be disabled. But no, he's not fear aggressive. He's just scared. So he's really hard to train because he's pretty scared of everything, and we haven't found like a reward that is a consistent incentive for him. For a little while, it was Sour Patch Kids watermelon things. He really loved those, and they're not great to give to dogs, but if you give them in small amounts, it's probably okay. But now that doesn't work, and he's just scared. So anyways, what he'll do sometimes is if you try to like offer him food or you try to teach him via food, he will occasionally snatch. And he doesn't mean to. He's not trying to bite your fingers off, but he will sometimes like get a really good nip in on your fingers. I mean, that's all dogs. All dogs would rather eat the people food than their food. That's just the rule. Alright, so how is everybody doing tonight? I have a new microphone. I have my microphone set up a little differently as well. So there'll be a little bit of a learning curve tonight. Yeah, thankfully he's not aggressive. He just gets scared really easily. We get windstorms a lot where I am, and last night there was a windstorm, and his favorite thing to do during a windstorm is to jump on me and like stomp all over me and sit on my head because he's scared. So he's not an aggressive dog. He's a complete and total sweetheart. All he wants to do is cuddle people. He just wants to be cuddled. Yeah, it just like the wind picks up really high. It's not anything like dangerous, but it well, and then I have people tell me, Marvy, that my voice puts them to sleep. So if you fall asleep, the VOD will be available. This VOD is going up on YouTube. So we do get tornadoes sometimes. Not frequently. We're at the bottom end of Tornado Alley. So we don't really get them too frequently, but we do get them on occasion. But we do get a lot of high winds around here. Year before last, actually, there was a strong enough windstorm that it picked up my shed and threw it in my neighbor's yard and just totally tore down our fence. So we do get some pretty strong winds around here that most people would probably consider them storms. They're pretty normal around here, and he's terrified of them, unfortunately. And his mommy is who he likes to go to when he's scared, and by go to I mean stomp all over me. So okay, I feel like we're like 10 minutes in now, a little under 10 minutes in. I feel like everyone who's wandered in, it is. It was funny. The shed thing was really funny after the fact. Thankfully, nobody was upset and nobody was hurt. The shed landed. Yeah, it's 15 minutes, but I had my standby screen up for 5, so I'm not counting that like first 5-ish minutes in my like timing here. The shed ended up on my neighbor's fence and like partly on their truck, and thankfully it didn't do any damage to the truck, and the neighbor was cool with it. And then we had to pay a guy to come out and cut it up because it's like one of those aluminum or really thin metal, or it was one of those aluminum really thin metal sheds. And so it's actually still in pieces in our yard because neither my husband nor I have like hauling vehicles. So we've got a whole bunch of debris in our backyard that we just haven't been able to haul to a dump because it's like 2,000 pounds of debris. And that is not going in our little cars. So yeah, that's the story of my life. Now, if Xiphon is in the chat, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you, Xiphon. I did not turn off terrible Russian accents. I'm trusting all of you. Do not turn on terrible Russian accents, or I'll be sad. I'll cry. I will cry on stream. Xiphon, if you're here, that is not a hint for you to do it. I won't honor it. I'll just cry. As funny as Julian would be in terrible Russian accents. Okay, I feel like everyone who's wandered in, Dougie's, not you. Don't you do it either. No, I won't honor it tonight. I'm just tired of turning it on and off. Terrible Russian accent. Terrible Russian accents were for Metro 2033, not for Impossible Julian Strand. Comrade. Oh, you guys are horrible. You're distracting me. I feel like we've got. You were gonna go for the terrible English accent. That one is just as bad. I don't really do accents. They are all quite terrible. Funny story. Kat, before she asked or gave me the option to do Julian's book. Ah! Marvy! Thank you for terrifying me with that subscription and that kick-ass Vicar Amelia battle music. Hell yeah! Thank you so much for the subscription. My heart stopped there for a second because I didn't know what was going on. I'm not sure if you guys heard the music. I kind of have my desktop audio turned off. I think the alert audio is on, but I just turned the desktop audio off because this is just a chatting stream. I sound like Hermione Granger. I'm sorry you guys missed the alert music. I got terrified by it. I can confirm that I got terrified by the alert music. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I watch too much BBC. That's my excuse. I lived a year in London and I watched too much BBC. A lot of people who actually are English and live in London in particular say that I sound Australian sometimes. So I don't know. I can't really. I just sort of make accents up as I go along. But yeah, so funny story. Yeah, Kat, before she had me do, or asked me to do Julian, she sent me a chapter of her latest book series that she's working on. And, hi, Dougies. Well, you know what? You say that my English accent is okay, then, and Ellie too. Well, thank you. It's a very posh accent. Don't ask me to do, I sound more American. Don't ask me to do, a Cockney accent or, a really, characterized accent. So, anyway, so Kat asked me to do some reading of her book that she's currently working on, and I tried to give the main character this, pseudo-English accent, and I sound like a Tory. I'm not sure that's a compliment. I don't know about that. Okay, I'm gonna start reading, guys. You're distracting me. I'm gonna start reading. Okay, so when last we left off, someone was screaming in Alice's ear. She was in the theater watching Charles do his magic, and then he disappeared. Because magic. Oh, God, now I'm chuckling and I can't start reading. Chapter 5. Someone screamed in her ear. Blarg! She screamed and collapsed to the ground. Someone was cackling like a madman, or like a Disney villain. She looked up from the ground and saw... Oh, wow, okay. So, funny story. I am reading off the Word document of the original publication of Illusions of Grandeur, and Charles's name is still Thomas in this copy. Oh, no. Oh, no. This is the unedited version. Kat, I don't know if you're listening. Hold on. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone. Oh boy. It's fine. It's fine. I'm pulling it up on my phone. I'll read it from there. Yeah, I pulled it from the beta channel. and it was definitely still Tom. So proof that Charles's name was originally Thomas. Someone was cackling like a madman, or like a Disney villain. She looked up from the ground and saw Charles, sitting in the chair behind her, leaning back, overcome with laughter. He had not only disappeared through the mirror, he had reappeared behind her in seconds. That was only half her astonishment. The other, was that he had scared the absolute hell out of her and was now laughing at her in hysterics. He was so clearly pleased with himself. Anger flared in her, and she swatted at his leg. God damn it, Charles! I'm sorry, I had to. No, you didn't. She slapped at his leg again, and pushed herself back up to her feet. That wasn't fair. You were so entranced. Come on, that was beautiful. You have to admit. When she slapped him on the arm, he lifted his hand to protect himself, still laughing. Not the face! Not the face! I have a show on Friday. Be lucky I don't break your nose, you jerk. She released a long and dragged out sigh, and rubbed her hands over her face, careful not to screw up her eye makeup. Sorry, I shouldn't be hitting my new boss. I shouldn't be scaring the shit out of my new employee. I'd say we're even. Is this why the last guy quit? No. First, there hasn't been a previous you. Second, I only scare people I think are cute. I don't swing that way. She stared at him, agog. Sorry. Sexual harassment in the workplace. He pushed to his feet and brushed himself off. You going to sue me? Was it a joke? He stared at her flatly. Mostly. She sighed again and shook her head. Just keep your hands to yourself. But what if you ask me not to keep them to myself? I'm a magician. I'm incredibly good with my fingers and... She glared and swatted him hard on the arm. He howled in laughter again and danced away from her. Okay, point taken. He laughed again and shoved his hands in his pockets. He was wearing a wrinkled button-down white shirt, sans the vest and tie. The sleeves were rolled up past the elbows, and she wondered if that wasn't his default look. Did you like the trick? I loved it. I have no clue how you did it. That's the point. He walked away from her and down the aisle toward the stage. He jumped up onto it without using the stairs, a good 3-foot height. He was stronger than he seemed at first glance. He swiveled the mirror around for her to see, and he knocked on the back of it for good measure. Any clues? You're a smart girl. None. I thought maybe the front was aluminum-threaded fabric, something highly reflective, but now I've got nothing. She didn't like admitting when she couldn't solve a puzzle. Can I touch it? Of course. You can touch anything of mine. He winked. She glared. He smiled. There's that awful sense of humor of mine again. He walked to the edge of the stage as she approached and offered her a hand up. It seemed rude to ignore it, and she put her hand in his and let him help her up the wood surface. She had never been on a stage before. Not really. Piano recitals as a kid hadn't counted. Seeing all the rows of empty seats, she tried to imagine them full of people. She couldn't even picture what she might do in such a situation. Probably pass out. Come on, all yours. Charles took her attention as he stepped back from the mirror on its wheeled stand. She walked up to it and found her eagerness to solve the puzzle overtook the strangeness of being on the stage. She walked around it first, and, sure enough, there were no secret compartments. She ran her hand along the back of it from top to bottom, trying to find any latches or anything. It was smooth, save for the staples that held the backer board in place to the frame. She took the edge of the mirror in her hand and spun it once all the way around horizontally, then rotated it around the pivot points in the stand until the glass was facing her. Looked like a normal mirror. No distortions, no waviness. She tapped her knuckles on the surface. Glass. She tapped all around on it, trying to find the seam, or split, or anything. Nothing. It was a normal mirror. But it can't be. She turned her attention to the stage and stomped her foot down on all the spots around the mirror. Nothing budged. No panels that she could see. She pushed the mirror off its spot on the stage and wheeled it a good 5 feet to one side. And there was nothing on the ground, except for a simple X in dark blue tape that was to show a stagehand where to place the prop to hit the lights correctly. She craned her head to study the light grid. Nothing. She shook her head and finally turned back to Charles, dumbfounded, and surrendered. I've got nothing. Not the slightest clue. Good! Charles was glowing in pride. Not like she suspected it took much. That means it's a great trick. If you could figure it out, I'd be worried. Are you calling me stupid? Nope. The opposite. You're perfectly intelligent as far as I can tell, and you checked all the things I would think someone might look at. His expression darkened. It became so instantly angry that she drew back from him, alarmed. He wasn't simply angry. He was furious. I have a lot of hoity-toity, know-it-all, rich-ass, main-stage cocksuckers who come here and try to shit on Uncle Julian's tricks. I want to make sure they all walk away realizing they're a bunch of upstarts and simpletons riding on his coattails. His fists were clenched, but just as quickly as his anger had come, it vanished in a blink, like a flash in the pan. Anyway, I'm glad you liked the trick. I did. Okay. The guy could flip moods like a coin. Good to know. Do you want to be my new assistant? I would love one. I haven't had one in years. How flexible are you? I don't know. The conversation had taken an abrupt turn. She stood there, confused and unsure of what was happening. Want to find out? He paused, and that hungry smile crossed his face again. I mean, in one of my boxes. I mean, one of my traps. I'm not helping. He cleared his throat. But anyway, I think you'd look fantastic in a sequin getup. I even have colors that'll work with your tattoo. That jarred her out of a stream of vaguely threatening, flirtatious comments. She hadn't worn anything that would show her ink. She was certain about that. She always kept it hidden at work. Wait. How do you know I have a tattoo? Oh, I saw it on your neck last night. He pointed to her throat, where the blue poked up onto the side of her neck, but she usually hid it with a shirt collar. When we were having pizza, you bent over to pet your cat, and I saw it peek out. I only saw a tiny bit of it. Is it big? Is it a problem? Not at all. I love body art. I don't have any myself, mind you. It makes body double tricks really hard to pull off. He shrugged and leaned against the mirror. He had apparently forgotten it was on wheels, and it rolled away from him. He nearly fell to the ground and staggered to catch himself as he grabbed the large piece of glass and wood before it crashed off the front of the stage. The ridiculous display made her laugh. She accepted his excuse for knowing about her ink. It sounded reasonable. Yeah, it's pretty big. It goes down my arm, across my back, and down my leg. I keep it hidden on the job, though. This is a house of magic, freaky toys, and oddities. Do you think anybody here is going to have a problem with it? He rolled the mirror to the center of the stage and held his hands out around it for a moment, as if afraid it might wander off again. When he was certain it wasn't going anywhere, he turned back to her. No need to hide it. Not even around the public. I bet it's beautiful. Thanks. That was a relief. She didn't mind long sleeves, but it was comforting to know she didn't need to wear them in the summer. And I'll take a rain check on being your assistant. He dramatically snapped his fingers in disappointment. Why? She motioned at the empty chairs. Crowds. Yes. He walked toward her and took her by the shoulders. Before she could protest, he had turned her to face the front of the stage and pushed her in front of him. He stood behind her, hands still on her shoulders, and she could feel him standing close to her back. Does the idea of this frighten you? 450 people watching you? Kind of. He reached over her shoulder and snapped his fingers. In that instant, the theatrical lights all illuminated to full with a loud click. She had to turn her head away from the glare. She couldn't see the empty seats anymore, only the bright and blinding glow of the lamps in her face. Is that better? But they'd still be out there. Even if I can't see them, I know they'd be out there. Why was he doing this? What was he trying to prove? Why did she feel like she was glued to the spot? Who was running the lights? None of her thoughts had time to process. He had put an arm around her waist, and he was holding her firmly to his chest. Her cheeks rushed with heat, and she knew she must be blushing bright red. This was not normal for a boss to touch her like that, but she couldn't find the strength to push him away. The strength, or the desire. Other desires were winning the fight. Charles's voice was quiet and near her ear when he began to talk. Being on stage is like sharing a piece of yourself with everyone out there. They know you, that little shard of you, better than anyone else might. To stand on a stage and perform is to cut off a bit of yourself and hold it up for them to see. It is exceedingly personal and extraordinarily intimate. That is why rejection upon a stage hurts so much more than most others. It's like being turned away by a lover. Indeed, I think it's exactly that. Standing here and asking for applause is like asking someone to be yours. His breath was hot against her ear, and she felt her eyes slip half shut from the sensation. He was lanky, but she felt his strength in his frame. It was easy to lean against him, to ignore what was happening and only feel him against her. Warm, strong, certain, and sure. And smelling vaguely of cloves. She pushed away from him. She turned to face him, and she knew she must be 20 shades of red judging by how warm it was. Were you in the carriage house last night? We had dinner. He blinked, clearly confused. After I went to bed, were you in the carriage house? Did you sneak in? No. Why? He took a step toward her, concern etched on his features. What happened? Did someone break in? I don't know. Furniture wasn't where I left it. Are you hurt? Was anything missing? No, I'm okay. Nothing was wrong. It sounded foolish when she said it out loud. A chair wasn't where I remembered leaving it. It sounded so childish and silly. She shook her head. She really was an idiot. Sorry, I shouldn't have accused you. It's all right. You didn't do anything wrong. If something wasn't where you left it, no wonder you're concerned. And I'm the only one with keys, so I make an obvious suspect. He folded his hands behind his back. I promise you I wasn't there. Did you alarm the building when you went to bed? Yeah. Then that settles it. Nobody could sleep through that thing shrieking, even if I knew the code. He smiled. I told you too many ghost stories, that's all. Big spooky house, new job, new home, sexy and enigmatic new boss. It's to be expected. She chuckled at his bad, over-the-top commentary again, and felt ashamed for having blurted out her concern. I'm sorry. No apologies. He walked to the front of the stage and hopped off it effortlessly. Come on, let's go get some coffee from the break room and some sandwiches. It's almost time for lunch, and I'm starving. Then we'll continue our tour. He turned to her and offered his hand once more. He was smiling like a cherub, but there was something very different shining in his eyes. Not quite malicious, but certainly not innocent. There was a deeply dangerous side to him, she realized. Something sharp, like the edge of a blade. She hesitated, but her concern didn't stop her from putting her hand into his and letting him help her off the front of the stage. When she landed on the ground, she was standing very close to him. Her face grew warm, and she chewed on her lip and took another half step back. She stared down at the ground. You really are adorably shy. We'll have to work on that, you and me, if you're going to be my new assistant. I never said I was going to be... Coffee! He ignored her and struck off up the aisle. It is, Dougie's. It is a romance novel. I will not be offended if you don't feel like you need to stay. He was already launched halfway into another story about the room, telling her some detail about where the light fixtures had come from and why they were important. He had jumped from one moment to the next with jarring speed. She felt like she was being dragged along in his wake, like a cabin attached to a runaway steam train. Something told her she was going to be in for a long and bumpy ride. The tour ended around 5 in the afternoon. The sun had started to slip beneath the horizon, casting the rooms in a strange, eerie, and beautiful sidelight. She had now seen all 3 floors of the building, and had started to cross through the main hallways enough times that she was getting a sense of how to get where. But when they ended, standing in the foyer, one thing was bothering her. 2 things, she corrected herself. Charles? He had been an adamant and energetic tour guide all afternoon. He knew everything there was to know about the house, and was more than happy to tell her long stories about all of it. He was a fantastic storyteller, and she found herself engrossed in what he had to say. I have 2 questions. Does this place have a workshop? I might need to fix things. Oh, yes, the workshop. The idea had clearly not occurred to him. He thought about it for a long moment, rubbing his hand over the back of his neck. What's wrong? No one's used it since he died. His brow furrowed. If you don't trust me with his tools, I totally understand. I mean, this is a museum. I have my own. I can... No, it's not that. I never realized you might need a place to set up shop. He shrugged. Come on, it's in the basement. I'll show it to you. He began to lead her through the house, humming an odd little tune to himself as he did. He went otherwise quiet, and that was strange. Charles, in the short time she had known him, had never been quiet. I don't need to use the workshop. I really don't. I've asked you to fix things. How can you do that without a shop? Those are the tools he used to make the same calliopes and illusions you'll be working on. And besides, who knows what you'll find when you dig through all the boxes? He went back to humming. But something still didn't feel right. He was tense, his shoulders raised, his hands tucked into his pockets. She followed him quietly for a little while before she decided she might as well offend him all in one go. I have another question. Shoot. What about the 4th floor? I counted the windows outside. There are definitely 4 floors and a tower, but you've only shown me 3. He laughed. It was a strange, sharp-edged laugh. It was both exasperated and friendly, dangerous and not. He gazed back at her, and she was caught for a second by something in his hazel eyes. Something that seemed a little like madness. Aren't you the inquisitive one? And as quickly, his expression softened, and the glint was gone. Excuse me. My throat just, made this weird, gurgling noise. I suppose you would be. Seduce a demon, provide enough souls and provide enough souls and you don't have to seduce a demon. That's a good point. I suppose you would be. That's why I hired you. Staff aren't allowed on the 4th floor. I'd ask you not to go up there unless you really feel you need to. Why not? Bad things have happened. He turned back to focus on where he was going. Those were Julian's private rooms. The few times I've let staff up there, something happens to them. Either they fall and hurt themselves, or they can't stop crying and screaming long enough to tell me what they saw. The way he said it sent a chill down her spine. More ghost stories. She pulled her coat tighter around her, wanting to warm herself from something that wasn't a physical kind of cold. Oh, was all she could think of to say. You might have to go up there now and then. There are alarm sensors on the windows up there. Let me show you the workshop first, then we'll double back, and I'll show you the main stairway to Julian's rooms. He rubbed his hand over the back of his neck again. I should warn you in both cases. They aren't public spaces. They aren't staff spaces either. They're untouched. Untouched. Weird. He opened a door from the kitchen and flicked on a switch. Bare light bulbs flickered and sputtered to life, and he headed down the wooden stairs into a far less finished, far less intricate space. The walls of the basement were thick stone, roughly hewn and stacked on top of each other. She followed him, curious and fascinated. Basements were always inherently a little creepy. Might have something to do with all the spiders. She wasn't afraid of them, but she didn't like walking through webs any more than anybody else. The basement was like any other old basement, save for the old bits and pieces of abandoned magic props that were too broken to salvage. Boxes of stuff, some labeled as gift store items, cans of paint, and stacks of furniture lined the walls. Pipes and heating and electrical conduit ran close overhead. All things considered, it was remarkably clean and tidy. But, like the house itself, it was also huge. It gave the whole thing a rather cavernous, catacomb-like feeling. He led her through the dark space, his shoes crunching on the packed dirt floor. He was once more silent save for his humming of the strange and eerie tune. After a few minutes, they passed a piano near one wall. Something about it made her stop. It looked out of place down there with all the old bits and pieces of stuff and stacks of boxes. It was a towering, old, upright piano. The wood was stained so dark it was nearly black. The keys were real ivory, turned yellow and brown with age. Some of the keys were chipped and broken. The front face of the piano, above the keys, was glass, revealing the mechanical innards of a player piano. The glass was too dusty and smudged to see much of what was on the inside, save for scraps of mechanics and a tattered and ripped-up paper sheet. A large J and S were set into the face in stained glass, created to wind around each other like vines. Julian Strand. It was his logo, and she had seen it carved onto emblems and shields, or on the iron gates in the yard. The man knew how to stick to a brand. She walked up to it and let her fingers trace along the top of the poor, neglected instrument. Dust came away on her fingers. No one had touched it in a long time. Why is this down here and not upstairs with all the others? Too broken. Maybe I can fix it, she smiled. I love player pianos. Never got a chance to work on one before. You can't. Huh? She turned to look at him, surprised. Did he not think she was smart enough to do it? Or had he tried and failed so clearly she wouldn't be able to manage? It didn't look like anybody had touched the thing in years. When she saw his expression, she pulled her hand off the piano reflexively. He was staring at her with a look that might have set her on fire by its sheer intensity alone. He wasn't glaring at her. He wasn't angry, but something about it made her freeze like a deer in headlights. He was rigid, and his hazel eyes were burning holes straight through her soul. She had never seen him look that way before. He seemed like another man entirely, someone far more severe than she was used to. She found herself shaking under the enormity of it. I'm sorry, I won't touch it. That seemed to crack whatever was happening in his mind. Or he saw the hurt on her face. Either way, he shook himself off and flashed her a beaming smile that was so different from his previous expression that it was jarring. Sorry, don't know what came over me there. No, it's not you. I'm sure you're smart enough to fix it. But that piano has to stay down here anyway. Why? It's built into the wall. It doesn't move. He gestured to it. Look. Sorry about that, guys. I had to cough. She turned back to the piano and walked around to the side of it to look. Sure enough, it went straight into the wall. He wasn't kidding. She pulled on it, but it didn't even budge. It looked like the stone foundation was built around the piano, which didn't make any sense at all. That's so weird. Welcome to the Strand estate. She laughed and gave him a faint smile. Sorry if I'm poking at things I shouldn't be. I love your curiosity. You're like me. You love to crack puzzles. I'm not used to having someone around who wants to peel everything back and see underneath. It's not unwelcome, it's novel. He shoved his hands into his pockets. He was watching her with another strange expression, something soft, something she didn't put a name on it. She didn't want to believe it. Never stop trying to solve the mysteries here. Maybe you'll succeed where everyone else has failed. In what? Finding some lost treasure? There's no treasure. He left enough of that out in the open. He laughed, and his expression turned dark, a wickedness crawling over his features. No, maybe you'll find him. Another one of the legends, that he had died, but his body had never been found. Is it true? He's here somewhere. Mm-hmm. This house is his mausoleum. He walked up to her and placed a hand on the yellowed and brown keys of the piano. He played one note, then another, playing a whole scale easily, revealing he knew how to play the piano. Or he would have, but all that came out were quiet and muffled clicks of the mechanism striking nothing. Maybe if you find him, he might be able to finally rest. Hazel's eyes met hers, and she found herself entranced by him once more. He had that intensity around him again. Or maybe you'll anger his ghost for defiling his tomb, and he'll take you to join him. She stared at him, wide-eyed. He lunged at her, and she shrieked, staggering away from him. He howled in laughter. Damn it, Alice, you're so cute when you're afraid. I can't help it. What were we here to see? He snapped his fingers. Right, the workshop. Come on. And with that, he walked away, whistling the tune now instead of humming it. She put her hand over her heart and felt it pounding in her chest. Without anything else to do, she followed. And that's the end of chapter 5, and I need water. How we doing, friends? And then, Dougie's, if you, or anyone else who doesn't know this book, if you want to read it, this link should work, presuming that my Streamlabs didn't break. There is Kat's Amazon page, and all of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, they are free to read. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, they're not expensive, and there is a box set of this series that has all of the deleted content included. The original published version is missing a few of the sexier scenes. Marvy keeping my ego under control. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you keeping my ego in check. It's like what I have to do for Aeon. I'm still laughing over the fact that the Word document version I have of this book has Charles's name as Thomas. Oh, you mean the book is decent and you can buy it in hardback. Marvy, we know that you love this book so much, and that's okay. We're happy that you love it. I don't know that there's a lot of huge... Sorry, I just saw what you guys were saying in Discord. I don't know that there's a lot of major changes between... I don't know that there was anything major besides the Charles Thomas thing. I think that was the biggest thing. The original beta version is the full version, so it does have the deleted scene that was removed in the original published version, which we talked about last week. Other than that, I think it's pretty much the same book except for some some basic editing. I'm sure that the original Word document, I'm pretty sure this beta version was pre-Lori, so it wouldn't... Lori is Kat's editor, so it wouldn't... It's the unedited version, basically. Yeah. The complete series does have everything, so if you buy the box set, that has all of the scenes in it. So, this was Kat's... See, it went Masks of Under, halfway between... the first Steel Rose, the first Cardinal Winds book, and then Julian. I don't know, Marvy. Ask Kat if you can have the beta version. If you can have access to the beta version, she might say yes. Julian, The Impossible Julian Strand was her 4th published series. It was her 2nd series that she published, fully self-published with no publisher involved. And, thank you, Marvy. there's like when you write a book like this, there's a level of intimacy, there's a level of like fear of rejection that you have, that, and also a level of like you have to sit at the Thanksgiving table with your family, and you don't necessarily want them reading all the dirty, smutty scenes and and talking to you about them. Funny story, you guys, most of you guys know this, but Kat's dad has read a few of the dirtier scenes, and she has to face him. So there were a couple scenes that I won't be reading because I'm reading the original book, that I won't be reading on stream. They will be in the full audiobook version, without me stumbling over my words and such. But yeah, I mean, you buy all of them. Support Kat so she will feed our obsession for dark, villainous men. Gotta catch them all like Pokemon. Exactly. There are sex scenes in this book still, but there was one. There were two that she removed from the full series, one from this book and one in the other one. I am recording the audiobook, Dougies. This is not the audiobook version. This is me doing it for stream, but I am working on an audiobook version. I've recorded through chapter 9 now. I lost a week with the stuff that was going on in Texas. So, I'm a little bit behind, and then I had to do some work resetting up my desk today, so I'm gonna have to fix up my microphone again, because it was acting funny when I was messing around in Audacity earlier, but I can fix it. It's no big deal. But yeah, Kat, it asked me, I don't know if it was, like, asking per se, as much as, like, mutual, let's make an audiobook together. So hopefully that will be done within, I don't know, the next couple of months. I've never done a full audiobook before, so I don't know what the exact timeline. You wanted me to do my Tory voice for a bit with my proper English accent. I'm an American. I have to speak proper Queen's English. I will definitely do it on stream sometime, though. You can redeem it while I'm in the middle of a stream, and I will absolutely do 5 minutes of a terrible English or terrible Russian accents, and you guys can laugh at me and record it. So, yeah, Kat's dad has read the desk scene in Steel Rose. Thank you, Marvy. Yeah, I don't know, since I've never done a full audiobook before, I don't know what the, like, actual deliverables would be in terms of timeline. So we're just kind of playing it by ear right now, but there's no upfront cost to doing it. I'm basically doing it for free, and then we'll figure out money stuff. Queens. I don't think I have a Queen's accent. I'd have to practice a Queen's accent. I lived in upstate New York. It is definitely a very different accent than Queens. You knew you were in love because of the desk scene, or something else. But yeah, so I don't know when the audiobook will be done, but I'm greatly enjoying working on it. I was actually very sad last week when we didn't have power, and I'm like, I really want to be recording the audiobook, but I can't be. Not when I'm risking losing power, so. Okay. The death scene. Yeah, that was a great scene. I'm glad that one. I think what's funny about that situation is so Kat gave the betas the book, and we all talked about the fact that in previous books some people had thought that the sex scenes were too much. So we were like, maybe we should tone it back a little, but then we have that scene in Steel Rose. It was a weird time. Now Kat just publishes whatever she wants. Whatever she wants to write, she publishes, and we love her for it, so. Alright. I'll let you guys chat amongst yourselves, and I am going to get back to reading. You know, there's a whole, okay, sorry, side note, there's a whole subreddit for that desk scene. I will link it in Discord if you don't have it already. So the desk scene is a blowjob scene in Steel Rose. It's pretty hot. I don't think I can describe it and do it justice, but it's a pretty Funny you say that, Marvy. I was actually going to add the cardinal wins to my list, but I cannot do a man's voice if that's not clear. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how Julian goes. Julian's a little bit easier to do because it is really focused between two characters, and neither of the characters are particularly complex. So, but I want it on my list. It's on my list at least for a reading stream. But Dougie's, I recommend that you check out the Cardinal Winds. Steel Rose is the first book. I'm sure. Well, like I said, I threw up Kat's Amazon page. It's on there. So, I would love to. At the very least, I will probably do Cardinal Winds on stream. Probably. You guys are very accepting. Romance novels are kind of in this, romance novels are kind of in this, like, weird sphere, too, for doing on stream, just because they do have that, like, sexual content. And while I'm not ashamed of it or worried about it, I just, like, I don't want to push my audience, my normal audience away. I know you guys love it, but... Okay, you're very distracting. We're not going to get through this book with you guys here. That's okay, I love you guys. You keep me entertained. You make me laugh. Chapter 6. Ta-da! Charles said, as he pushed open the large wooden door to Julian Strand's workshop. He hooked the padlock over the notch in the wall. The door had creaked loudly, and she watched as he brushed dust off his hand. The door hadn't been opened in a long time. He had to yank on the lock a few times to get it to budge at all. She walked in and let out a whistle. Holy shit! No kidding. I warned you this place is untouched. Untouched, and Julian Strand had apparently not been a tidy man. Either that, or this was his version of organized, and his mind had been utter chaos. She voted the latter, honestly. There was stuff everywhere. It was hard to tell what she was even looking at. Parts of stage illusions were hanging from the walls or the ceilings. Painted pieces of this or that, of trim and decorations, or large sliding mechanisms that were the pieces of some illusion or another, maybe. On one wall was a seat of metal and wooden gears and sprockets, all arranged on nails hammered into a wooden board. Tables were everywhere, and on every surface were even more piles of even more stuff. Dowels, wires, spools of thread, cans of old paint. Then came the stranger items, swords, blades, carved wooden heads that were meant to look like Julian Strand, painted hands. There was a whole fake leg, bird cages, dusty and tattered fabric that had faded with age, tools of the trade. She wandered through the room once more in awe of what she was seeing. The room was also filled with tools, chisels and wood-carving implements, saws, planers, and a foot-pedal-operated lathe. Nothing electric, of course. She'd have to buy a chop saw. She owned her own jigsaw and Dremel. While she expected those were probably going to be her main workhorses, she might need something bigger. She found herself drawn to the carved head on the table. It wasn't a perfect replica of a head, but it would have been plenty good enough for the stage. It would have fooled people from 20 feet away in a trick. She couldn't help it. She knew she shouldn't, but she picked it up and looked down into the carved face of Julian Strand. It had glass eyes, one blue and one light brown. They seemed to stare into her. Charles did really look a great deal like him. A blonde wig, probably made of human hair, was glued to the wood. She ran her thumb over the dusty cheekbone of the head and found herself rapt. "Hello, Julian Strand." "We can clear off a table for you to work." Charles's voice almost made her jump. Oh, excuse me, guys, I have to sneeze. I'm so glad I got this microphone with this mute button so I don't have to sneeze in your ears like I used to do. Charles's voice almost made her jump. She stammered. She realized she shouldn't be holding a priceless artifact, and she placed it gently back down on the table. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be touching." He laughed and walked up to her. Scooping the head out of her hands, he tossed it into the air and caught it. He leaned against the table next to her and did it again. "If I were him, I wouldn't mind a pretty girl coming in here and poking around all my old junk. He put the head down on the table and placed his hand atop the blonde wig that had been glued to it. Thank you, Marvy. I bet he'd enjoy the company, wouldn't you, old man? He rocked the head back and forth, and changing his voice, he pretending to be the ghost of Julian Strand. I like her a lot more than I like you, nephew. She comes with a nice view. She laughed and swatted at his arm again. She knew she was blushing by the warmth in her cheeks. He was so damn flirty. Stop it, she protested. But she was smiling. She enjoyed it. Nobody ever flirted with her. Not really. Or if they did, she didn't notice. Maybe nobody had ever been that blunt about it. Why? Because I'm your boss? There's that. And you're a hound. So I know you don't mean it. He tilted his head at her curiously and leaned his elbow on the table, lowering himself a few inches to look at her more on her level. I don't mean it. News to me. I'm pretty damn sure I mean it, but hey, what do I know? Then you must get 100 sexual harassment complaints a year. I have never even had one. He put his hand to his chest in mock hurt. First, you accuse me of being a disingenuous flirt, and now a deviant. Alice, you wound me. No, I don't flirt with the staff. Only you. Why? You're so smart and so dense at the same time. He sighed heavily and hung his head, muttering something as he pinched the bridge of his nose. You're incredibly cute. You're intelligent. You're curious. You're interesting. Damn it all, Alice. Nobody else who works here is interesting. They're a bunch of idiot children or sad adults looking for a dime. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, isn't it? I need a job to make money. Yes, fine, but you're searching for something more than money, aren't you? You're searching for a purpose, to find your place in the world. She stammered and stopped. That was true. But how could he have figured her out so quickly? She was usually accused of being an icy wall, never letting anybody in. She didn't like anyone enough to bother. She preferred to keep to herself, but she had never actually found her calling. He was right. I guess. I like you, Alice. I flirt because it's fun, because I want to, and because it makes you smile. Does it honestly bother you? Did it? Nope. Should she lie? Probably. Could she muster the strength to? Also nope. She shook her head. Her face lit up in warmth again, and she fiddled with the sleeve of her coat. She couldn't meet his intense hazel stare. You're my boss. I'm not asking you to blow me to keep your job. Whatever happens or doesn't happen off the clock has no impact on your employment. He hummed. This is a family business. It'd be kind of awkward if my parents weren't, getting it on after hours. I'd never have been born. She smiled, but didn't let herself make eye contact. She felt caught up in everything, and something about him pulled her in like quicksand. It's too fast. That's a better argument. Still a bad one, but a better one. When his fingers touched her cheek, she jolted, but didn't pull away from him. His touch was warm. The pads of his fingers were a little rough, like a man who worked with his hands for a living. He wandered his fingers over her cheek before trailing them down over her jawline. He tilted her head up to look at him. Oh, no, Dougie's the death scene is from a book called Steel Rose. I will grab a link for you at some point. It's in, let me throw up. I will pause just for you, just to be able to push Kat's books. Let me pull up her books, and I will pull up the book that it's in. No, I don't think that was a reference to the... Oh, no. It's from a different book. Yeah. Let me click the link. Let me do it, computer. Here we go. This is in the US store, so I'm not sure if it'll affect you at all. Yeah. Buttons are hard, guys. There we go. That's the link to the to the US store. I don't know if it'll automatically link you to the UK store. But that's the one with the death scene that everyone's talking about. I highly recommend it. The book. It's a really good book. It's a diesel punk book, which is awesome because nobody writes in diesel punk. He wandered his fingers over her cheek before trailing them down over her jawline. He tilted her head up to look at him with the crook of a finger under her chin. I'm a very impatient man, and I always know what I want. The hazel of his eyes was like kaleidoscopes in the dim lighting of the workshop. They drew her in, trapped her, and kept her there. He was so intense, so smoldering. She didn't know how to pull away from him. She didn't know if she wanted to. Screw that. She really didn't want to. Wherever he was promising to take her, she wanted to follow. His fingers trailed over her cheek again, his thumb tracing along the line of her lower lip. He whispered to her, his voice suddenly thick and raspy. I want to kiss you, Alice. May I? Please? It was as though the air between them was suddenly a vacuum. She felt hot and cold at the same time. She hesitated. She froze. She said nothing at all. She wanted him to. She wanted to kiss him, but she knew it was too fast, employment aside. He was a truck, ripping through a red light, leaving her standing on the sidelines wondering what the hell had happened. But he was looking at her with such embers in his eyes that she couldn't look away. He stepped closer to her. She smelled cloves again, rich and spicy. When he leaned down to kiss her, she finally managed to reply, entirely out of fear. It was barely more than a whisper. Wait. He smiled and turned his head to place a kiss against her cheek instead. Slow, warm, and making her wonder what it would have felt like if she had let him kiss her lips. Now she found herself deeply regretting stopping him. He pulled back and straightened to his full height. Are you going to ask me to stop flirting with you? No, only don't do it around other people. I don't want the guides thinking there's anything going on. Is there anything going on? His face lit up hopefully. That means you think there's something going on. She slapped her hand hard into the center of his chest, and he cackled as he backed away from her. Knock it off. Fine, fine. You're so easy to tease. Well, this workshop is yours now. Just be careful with Uncle Julian's junk. He paused with a blink. That came out really wrong. I mean, if you find his junk, be careful with that too. Probably a little moldy. It might still work, though. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you borrowed it. The nights get lonely. I won't judge. She groaned in dismay and pushed him with both her hands, sending him staggering back a step. Oh my God, you're horrible! Guilty as charged. He was laughing again, and he took a bow at the waist, clearly proud of himself. Let me show you the stairs to the 4th floor and set you loose for the night. He turned and led her out of the room, shutting the workshop door behind him, but not securing the padlock. It was a relief to get back to a normal conversation, something mundane, something not nearly so extreme. Yeah, I need to stock my kitchen. There's a grocery store about 20 minutes into town. It's open fairly late, so you'll be able to get whatever you need. Are you ready to walk the building on your own tonight? I don't want to swing by in the morning and find you asleep on a sofa after getting lost. She chuckled. I think I'm getting the hang of it. I'll be fine. I want to actually start doing my job. Tomorrow, I can start repairs on whatever needs to be done. You have a great work ethic. I like it. Well, you know how to work the alarm panel to the building. Come by around 11, walk the place once, and call it a night. You'll get a call to your phone if anything goes off during the night. How far away do you live? She realized she didn't know much about him. All his stories were always about his relationship to the house, never his own personal life outside of work. About an hour. Too far away to get here in time if there was a problem. That's why you're here. They passed by a display case of knives. He paused and studied it, then, pulling the keys from his pocket, began fishing through them. He found a small one, undid the cabinet, and picked through an assortment of switchblade knives before he found one. It was small, but vicious-looking. The handle was mother of pearl, inlaid with copper. He tested the mechanism, and it flicked in and out easily. It looked incredibly sharp. Turning to her, He presented the blade back in, turning to her, he pressed the blade back in and held it out. Here you go. What? What? You said you had furniture move around on you last night. It was probably only Uncle Julian being a creep and coming to say hi, but if something happens, you should have something to defend yourself with. I doubt you're the kind of girl who came with a handgun or a knife. No. If some little shits break in here and start something, I want you to feel safe. Here, take it. She hesitated, but finally took the knife from him. It felt sized perfectly to her palm. She smiled faintly and slipped it into her pocket. Thank you. Try not to stab me with it if I sneak up on you again. Well then, don't sneak up on me anymore. No can do. That's a promise I can't make. The dog just came in. The dog and the husband. My husband just walked into the room to get a drink from our drink fridge. And now he's staring at me.
The dog came in. I don't write mention.
Try not to stab me with it if I sneak up on you again. Well then, don't sneak up on me anymore. No can do. That's a promise I can't make. He locked the case back up with a quiet click. I was always the punk in grade school who flicked spitballs at the girls I liked. They walked through the house together for another few minutes before he reached one of the several rooms that could be dubbed a library, if only because of the sheer quantity of books in it. She figured they were all mostly for show. This is the third-floor study. Study, not a library. Sure. She wasn't sure what the difference really was. He reached one bookcase and motioned her over to him. She stood by his side, and he put his finger atop one of the volumes. It was dark purple with copper lettering. That was his color scheme, she had quickly figured out. Wanderings of the Chaotic Mind was the title. A little on the nose, but okay. He pulled the book and it hinged on the front corner. As he did, the bookcase clicked and swung inward. She knew her face must have lit up in fascination. A secret passageway. A real secret passageway. She tried not to laugh in excitement, but couldn't help but let out a happy squeak. That's so cool! He was beaming in pride, clearly ecstatic to show off some of the house's weirder features. I'm glad you like it. There are dozens and dozens of these scattered around, but this one goes up to Julian's private rooms. He walked into the dusty corridor. Reaching in, he fumbled for a switch before hitting it. It was far less used than the rest, and a few of the light bulbs that struggled to light the narrow passage were burned out. Spiders had made their homes in the corners of the space, since it was clear nobody else was going to use it. A narrow set of stairs climbed steeply in front of them, twisting up and away out of sight. No wonder people fell down the stairs. They were far too steep for code, and they curved in such a way that going down them would be more than a little dangerous. Ghost or no ghost, she could imagine people taking headers down those would really hurt themselves. They were one step above a ladder. She craned her head up the stairs to try to see further up, but she saw only darkness. The lights up there weren't on. Why would they be? I'd show you, but I don't like it up there. You don't? Too creepy, even for me. He sighed. I'll show it to you someday when it's bright out. I don't like to take chances. It gives me the willies, and I've seen too much up there. Julian doesn't take kindly to his personal space being invaded. She was surprised there was a single place in this house that bothered him. He shrugged and motioned his head for her to follow him back out of the passage. He let her go first, so he could close the bookcase behind them. Good to know. She paused, and couldn't believe what was going to come out of her mouth. Is Julian going to be okay with me wandering around his house tonight? Charles didn't answer, but he was watching her like he had won some sort of personal victory. At first, she didn't realize what it had been, until she realized she had talked about the ghost like he was real. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but there was no harm in asking, even if it felt like a silly and childish question. Remember what I said. He likes being talked to. Introduce yourself. Tell him about yourself. One warning I can give is that people who disrespect his home never leave it well. Noted. He glanced down at his watch and grunted. It's getting late. I should let you go grocery shop. This has been fantastic, Alice. I really am so very happy you're here. I think you're the perfect person for the job, even if I do have an ulterior motive now. He winked at her again. I promise that isn't why I picked you. I appreciate that. It's a really sweet bonus, though. She slapped his chest again. He snickered. If he was going to flirt with her, if he was going to kiss her cheek, she figured they were personal enough that she could smack him in the chest. He was a playful imp. She suspected he had claws, and that there was something dangerous lurking in the shadows of his mind. She had seen enough to know he was an eccentric, but so far, he had been little more than a bit too forward with her for her comfort level, for her enjoyment level. He was fine, but she wasn't used to it. When they had locked up and were standing on the front porch, she turned to say goodbye to him, and found him looking at her with an oddly warm expression on her face. He reached for her hand. Unsure of what to do, she gave it to him. He leaned down and placed a kiss against the back of her knuckles. It was too slow, too intimate to be friendly. It instantly set her cheeks ablaze. Have a lovely night grocery shopping, Alice. I'll see you tomorrow. You too. I mean, not the grocery shopping, I mean the... She let out a disgruntled sound and glared at him, blaming him for her stammering. Have a good night, Charles. He chuckled as he stood and walked away from her down the stairs with a smug smile. He knew perfectly well what he had done. Sleep well. Good luck with Uncle Julian tonight. Thanks. Something told her she might need it. That's chapter 6 done. That section with the bookcase, there's just something about the way that it's written that actually, it tripped me up a lot when I was reading it to record it for the audiobook. But I got through it. Somehow. How's everyone holding up? And yes, Julian is a worthy distraction. I agree. Chapter 7. Alice disarmed the panel as she walked into the front door of the Strand estate. 4 numbers, then off, and the panel beeped in confirmation. It was 11 p.m. on the nose. She wasn't going to push it any later than she had been asked to. She locked the main door behind her and walked into the small control closet next to the front. Luckily, all the lights in the house had been double wired to a pile of switches by the front door. It meant she could control most of the main elements from the front without having to flip lights on room by room, or worse, wander around with a flashlight. Thank you, Dougies. I appreciate that. She wasn't superstitious, but that sounded like 20 kinds of a bad idea. That sounded like it would invite issues. And while she might not believe in ghosts, yet, she wasn't about to strap a sign to her back that read, "Spook me." Once the lights were all flicked on, she walked into the foyer and looked up at the infinity tower that stretched overhead. She didn't think she'd ever get sick of looking at it. The house was silent, utterly silent. She took in the room and felt the expanse of it for the first time. She had always been there with Charles, or with the dull cacophony of tourists, but now that was all gone. It was only her and the house, one that might be haunted. But nobody was around to make fun of her if she freaked out at a moving curtain or a creaky door, and no one was around to tease her for talking to the empty air. Charles had coached her to talk to the ghost of Julian Strand. Empty air or not, she talked to herself all the time anyway. She had a direction to point it in now. She took in a breath, held it, and let it out. Hi, Julian. I'm Alice. I'm the new living caretaker. I'm here to, well, watch over the place. Make sure nobody breaks in, or a pipe doesn't burst without anybody noticing, or anything like that. I'm also going to be helping fix things around the house during the day. Silence. She wasn't sure what she was expecting to happen. She shrugged and began walking her rounds. She decided to go clockwise. As she walked, she talked. It was better than the eerie, all-encompassing silence. Your house is amazing. I'm not saying that so you don't push me down the stairs either. I mean it. This place is incredible. I love animatronics. She realized a ghost might not know what that was. Scratching the back of her neck, she tried to think of how to describe them to someone who had been dead for over 100 years. They're like the calliopes and automata you made, only electric. They run on wires and servos and are driven by computers or something like that. I think you'd like them. Anyway, she chuckled, I love them. Always have since I was a little kid. I'm excited to get a chance to fix yours up, and I promise to take great care of them. A few rooms later, and she began talking again. I also love music. I play piano and guitar. I tried to pick up violin as an adult, but that's goddamn hard. So hopefully I'll be able to maintain all the instruments you have around here. And you have a lot. I never knew player oboes were a thing. Or accordions. Or half of the things you have. She tucked her hands into her coat pocket as she walked. Other than that, I don't know what else to say. I'm a nerd. I like computer games, board games, puzzles, gadgets, anything like that. My new favorite hobby is my 3D printer, and I love tinkering with things. That's about it. I don't really have any other hobbies, I guess. She had already made it through half the house, and she thought this might not be so bad. Walking around, talking to a big, empty building. I don't know a lot about magic. I hope that's not a problem. I'll read up on my history. I should learn the tour in case I need to give it in a pinch. You're a fascinating guy. I don't know how to feel about all the disappearances and rumors of murder and all that, but hey, as long as I'm not on the list, I guess everybody's got skeletons in their closets. She smirked at her bad pun. You might have one literally. Something slammed behind her, and she whirled with a shriek, her heart instantly pounding. A door to one of the side rooms had hit the jamb hard enough to rattle the glassware in the cases next to it. Sorry, bad jokes. No more skeleton jokes. Check that. I won't make jokes anymore. Now she was really being superstitious. She walked up to the door and reached for the knob. She hesitated. Only the wind. There's probably a crack in a window somewhere that did it. A pressure change, that's all. But she still hesitated. She knew she needed to open the door. That was her job. If there was a window open on the other side, she had to shut it and lock it. That was all she needed to do. She was being stupid. But still, her hand hesitated over the knob. Man up, cowboy, she muttered to herself. She went to touch the knob and twist it. Wham! Something slammed into the door on the other side. It was like a bear had shoulder-checked the wood. She screamed and fell backward, landing hard on the ground. The glassware rattled loudly in their cases. That hadn't been the wind. No way in hell had that been the wind. She fished the knife out of her pocket and kept it in her palm, not yet flicking it open. Who's in there? She shouted. Silence. Her heart was deafening in her ears. She pushed herself to her feet and crept closer toward the door. She squeezed the switchblade and reached for the knob with her other hand. The knob began to turn. She yanked her hand back. Whoever was on the other side was opening it. I'm going to call the cops. Whoever you are, the game is over. Nobody answered. The door clicked open as the knob finished its rotation. Slowly, the door swung open. There was no one there. That didn't mean they weren't hiding behind the door. She flicked the blade open. I'm armed. I don't want to hurt you. Come out now, and your stupid game is over. You go home, I go home, and we call it a night. She walked slowly into the room and kicked the door lightly, sending it bumping against the wood of the wall. No one was there. She turned slowly in a circle. It was mostly devoid of furniture, so there was nowhere for anyone to hide. The door was the only way in or out, except for all the secret passageways. Someone could maybe have opened the door and run fast enough to hide. But she hadn't heard the footsteps or anything click shut. She walked along the perimeter of the room, searching the walls for any hint of seams or anything that might betray a passage. Nothing. Didn't mean there weren't any. It simply meant she wasn't looking hard enough. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Maybe Charles was screwing with her. But there weren't any cars in the driveway. Who else would know when she was supposed to be there and hide in a room long enough to scare her? Maybe it was him. Or maybe it wasn't. Feeling stupid, she didn't know what else to do. Julian, if that was you, you made your point. No teasing the dead guy, got it. She could have sworn she heard laughter from somewhere in the building, but it might have been the wind. A lot of things might have been the wind. Or maybe they weren't. Give me a second. I have to do the Julian voice. And I can't always nail it the first time. Okay. Oh, pretty rabbit. Tease me all you like. It simply means I get to tease you back. He had laughed at her comment, knowing it would carry through the house, ghostly and quiet. He knew she heard it from the shiver he saw rush over her. He wanted to chase away the cold with the warmth of his hands. He planned to do it soon enough. But he had to play his cards right. These things took proper pacing, like a good trick. Don't rush to the end. Alice brandished her little knife, one from his collection no less, and held it bravely aloft, threatening whoever might challenge her. Smart girl. There were many explanations for what he had done, and he had watched as she clearly settled on the likeliest of all possibilities, that an intruder was loose in the house. She checked for passageways and found none. There weren't any in this room, but he found himself immensely pleased to watch her logical mind at work. A puzzle solver. He liked puzzle solvers. He liked this particular puzzle solver very much indeed, for many, many reasons. Her scream had been delicious. He wanted to hear another one. He wanted to hear her scream in more than one way. But enough was enough for now. He did not want to send the girl away. He couldn't leave the grounds. She could. If she ran, he couldn't follow. He needed her to want to stay. A little bit of fear balanced with a little fun. If he knew her, and he was a quick study of others, she would be drawn in by the mystery of his home. He had seen her investigate his piano in the basement. His very secret puzzle. If he could tempt her with clues, she would stay to solve it, no matter what manner of torment he paid her. He was certain of it. So he would lay the crumbs, he would leave them out for her piece by piece and lead her to him. In return, he would be paid in the amusement of watching her try to solve his game. Then he would be paid in fear. Then, if she were obliging, he would have his payment from her in other ways as well. He followed her as she made her way around the building, a little faster than she had been moving earlier. To his surprise, and her credit, she was still completing her rounds. He had scared her, and she was hell-bent on either catching the culprits or completing her job. Wonderful work ethic. It was so rare these days, so rare indeed. He wanted to reach out and touch her hair, to nuzzle into her and catch the scent of lavender that seemed to cling to her. He resisted. He would wait until she was asleep before he joined her again. She was so warm, so soft, so wonderful. Schemes and games rolled over in his head, ways to twist and toy with her. He wanted to do them all. He had to figure out how to make it all fit, like pieces on a chessboard. He needed everything in all the right places. and he needed her to play along, to stand on the stage and hit her marks without knowing her lines. But so far, she was improvising perfectly. He had relished her exploration of his workshop. He would happily share it with her. Well, for a price. But she didn't need to know that yet. She lingered to stare at the secret bookcase that opened to reveal the stairs to his tower, his apartments on the 4th floor, the ones over which she had so eagerly inquired. He saw the temptation flicker over her face. She wanted to see, wanted to explore, wanted to uncover. But she swallowed hard, shook her head, and kept moving. He was disappointed she had made what was easily the wiser decision to trust her instincts. "Do you want to find me, little rabbit? Do you want to come and play with me? I want to play with you very, very much." Excitement bloomed in his heart. If she wanted to know him, he would be more than happy to introduce himself. Perhaps he would have to arrange for such a thing sooner rather than later. Rounds completed, she flicked off the lights, armed the house, and left, locking the door behind her. He would give her some time alone. Then he would crawl into her bed like the snake he was and let himself enjoy her body against his. Not in the way he wanted, but it would be enough for now. Morning came, and she once more felt rested despite the inexplicable events in the house the night prior. She caught the scent of cloves and decided it might be time to launder the sheets. It wasn't that she minded the smell. It was actually quite nice, but it was weird. Whatever had happened in the house, she hadn't ever found the goons responsible for it. Or goon, singular. After thinking about it again and again, playing it over in her head, she realized there was only one option for what had happened. Charles was messing with her. Hazing, or some other bullshit like that. He must have parked his car down the driveway, gone into the house, and waited for her. This was probably how he trained all the new people. Deciding that must be the case, she went about getting ready for the day. The realization that it was simply Charles being a jackass swept all her nervousness under the rug. He hadn't hurt her. He was only getting his laughs. He enjoyed scaring her, and it had been a harmless prank. She dressed for work, piled all her tools and her 3D printer in a box, and placed her laptop on top. She had a plan for the day, unless something went awry. It probably would. Heading up to the house, she found herself smiling. The job was still an exciting one. She needed to make a list of all the things she needed to repair. Then she'd start figuring out which ones were the highest priority. Walking in, she smiled at the young man in the lobby. "Hi, Billy." Billy smiled and waved at her, even though she was standing right there. "Good morning, Miss Monroe." "Alice," she chuckled. "Just Alice." "How was your first night in the house?" The young man was clearly overeager, like he was desperate to hear some gossip about a terrible ghostly moment. "Anything interesting?" "No, it was quiet," she lied seamlessly. "Is Charles around?" "I haven't seen him, but I'm sure he's around. He comes out of nowhere sometimes." "No kidding." She walked away, heading toward the basement. "I'll be in the workshop if he needs me. Have a good one." "You too, Alice." Nice kid. His hopes and dreams hadn't been crushed yet. It had happened eventually, and she hoped it was a long time off. She headed down to the basement and flicked on the lights as she went. She passed that strange player piano built into the wall. She paused to look at it, and she furrowed her brow. It had to be there for a reason. It had to do something. She shook her head. Another puzzle for another day. There were plenty in this place. She went to the workshop and set her box down on the table. Something on the surface next to her caught her attention. Something she hadn't noticed the day prior with Charles. Wood shavings. They weren't dusty like everything else. They looked fresh. She picked one up and turned it over in her hand. There was a decent pile of them, like someone had hastily carved something and left the mess behind. Then there were the paint jars, with brushes abandoned in them to dry up and get ruined. White, blue, purple, and green. The same colors of the clock that now sat on her nightstand. Charles. It had to be. She dug out an empty cardboard box from somewhere else in the basement and brushed the shavings into it. It'd have to do for a trash can for now. She picked up the brushes and was sad to find they were nearly too dry to salvage. They were old and good quality, so she'd do her best to save them. She found some paint thinner, poured it into a little cup, and worked the brushes in the substance until they started to come clean. When all the paint had finally come off them, she set them aside to dry and shook her head. A nice gesture, but he had clearly done it so hastily that he had almost ruined a few antique art brushes at the same time. She began to clear off the table one at a time, sorting through it all and organizing it. She turned to look at the carved wooden head of Julian on the table. "Hope you don't mind if I tidy up a bit," she said to the prop. Not for any real reason, but because it was too quiet in the basement. Setting out her tools, she started to set up her printer. It had a lot of little pieces to screw together. "What's that?" She screamed. She whirled and smacked Charles hard in the chest without even realizing what she had done. "Goddamn son of a bitch!" she swore, and leaned back against the table, clutching her hand to her chest. "For fuck's sake, Charles!" He was cackling again, that ever-present wicked expression and glee shining in his eyes. Sorry, too much fun. Billy told me you were headed down here, so I thought I'd catch up." Alice groaned and put her head in her hands. "You're going to give me a goddamn heart attack." "Nah, might make you go gray, though." He walked up beside her and began poking at her printer. "After last night, you might." "Huh? What happened last night?" He glanced over at her. "You know damn well." He stopped and turned to her, his brow furrowed. "I don't know what you're talking about. Are you mad at me? What do you think I did?" "I'm not mad, I'm annoyed. And you know what I'm talking about. Your stunt last night, with the door and the secret passageway." He shook his head. "I was home. You watched me leave. I live an hour away, and you would have seen my car." "You could have parked down the street and walked. You were hazing me, I guess. It's fine." She turned back to the box and took out her laptop, opening it and pressing the power button. "I wasn't doing anything of the sort. What happened?" "A door slammed, then opened again." "The wind?" "I watched the handle turn." "So you think whoever it was disappeared through a passageway, and you think it was me because—" "You had the two hallmarks of a suspect, motive and opportunity." "What motive?" "You like scaring the shit out of me." He paused. "Okay, yeah, I do. You think I stayed here all night waiting to scare you, then what, I slept here?" "That's a pretty high commitment for a single jump scare. I would have absolutely come out and told you it was me. I like to take credit for my hard work." "Maybe you're trying to convince me this place is really haunted." "Why?" "To scare me more." "I'm doing fine on my own." "Point. It really wasn't you?" "It wasn't me." He crossed his fingers over his heart. "Why would I try to drive you off? I'm trying to get you to like it here. I want you to stay." "Point, set, and match." She sighed. "Fine. Okay then. Fine. Then I don't know what happened. It was weird and terrifying, and if it wasn't you, then I don't like the other options." "Which are what?" "Someone else was in the house." "It was probably Uncle Julian messing with you. He likes to do that, especially to new people. Likes to test them to see if they have the mettle to work here." Charles went back to poking at her setup. "Seriously, what is this?" "It's a 3D printer." When he stared at her blankly, she smiled. She didn't think they were that strange, but she traveled in nerdy circles. "It heats up plastic filament and extrudes it into complicated three-dimensional shapes. I'm hoping I can use it to print replacement parts for things that we can't manufacture or buy." "Shapes like what?" She dug around in her box and found a little octopus she had printed a while back. Its legs were made of different links, allowing all 8 legs to wiggle like tentacles. She handed it to him. "Like this." "You made this?" He began playing with it, fiddling with the legs, fascinated. It came out of that machine. I sculpted it in a piece of software on my computer, hit run, and the printer did the rest. That's astonishing. It printed it, even with all the little interconnected parts. No assembly required. He was staring at it in fascination, playing with the little octopus like it was the most amazing thing he had ever seen. That's incredible. And so goddamn cute, too. Keep it. Huh? He blinked at her curiously. I can print another. I have tons of little things like that I've made. Keep it. He studied the plastic toy in his palm, and she would have thought she had given candy to a toddler. He seemed so touched, and excited at the same time. For a second his expression fell. Nobody gives me things. Ever. There was an odd twinge to his voice, and she watched his shoulders slump for a fraction of a second before his debonair demeanor came back like a shadow had passed over the moon. Thank you. You're very welcome. I should go. He checked his watch. Stupid day job. How'd you do last night with the house otherwise? Except for the slamming door, fine. Great, I'll check in with you later then. He fiddled with the little octopus again as he walked away. I promise not to scare you any more today. I appreciate it. Ta. She said goodbye and watched him walk away, enamored of the plastic toy she had thought nothing of. She had been proud of it, but it was one of several she had made. But to him, it seemed like so much more. Odd man. Very odd but endearing man. But he made her smile. She liked being near him, even when he was terrorizing her. She paused to glance up at the carved head of Julian and chuckled. I think I rather like your nephew. Hope you don't mind. She almost expected him to respond, but thankfully he didn't. That's chapter 7 done. So Louis is, or Louis, is, Julian's brother. We meet him much later in the series. We actually meet him in a different series, I should clarify. Julian does need hugs, probably. He was not hugged enough as a child, but now he has a little octopus to hug him. And it's cute. Whew. Okay. Lots of dialogue in that chapter. Of this book series, The Impossible Julian Strand. Louis isn't really. I guess Julian's a spoiler. Okay, so you missed the first few chapters, Dougie. So Alice has come to work as the caretaker / like repair person for the Strand estate. Julian Strand was a musician, a magician from like 150 years ago. And so Charles is the guy who's flirting with her, and he's the guy who owns the place. Julian is the ghost. So that's what you missed in like the first 5 chapters. So Julian is still very much in the house and enjoys spooking people. And he gets the ASMR voice. Give me a second. I need to take my sweater off. It's getting warm in here. It was cold and now it's warm. A sexy ghost why? I don't know why. I know it's the word magician in my head, but I keep wanting to say musician. There's actually a blooper from the line where Alice is talking about a cacophony of tourists. It took me 6 or 7 tries when I was recording that chapter for the audiobook to not say terrorists. Cacophony of terrorists. I don't remember. Oh, wow. It's been so long since I've seen Scary Movie 2. I'm not sure the exact scene you're referencing. But probably. Well, spooky things are going to happen for sure. So, if you've ever been interested in a romance story with a ghost, well, you're in the right place. Wahahahaha. It's getting hot in here, so Julian takes off all my clothes. That's not appropriate for Twitch, Marvy. Stripping is inappropriate for Twitch. I'm gonna get booted off. Oh, man. That could happen, yeah. I have to remember you haven't read this book yet. Most of the people who are hanging out in chat are Catherine and Kingsley fans. So, is there a song called Sex with a Ghost? There's a song that has a music video where the woman is clearly, getting it on with a ghost. Desire by Meg something or other. But don't worry about it, Marvy. Whatever it is, don't worry about it. It's fine. Everything's fine. I kind of spoiled Louis, didn't I? My avatar is indeed completely dressed, so it's fine. She's dozing off over there in the corner. I'm glad. So, if I can gush over Kat. So, Kat's a friend of mine. I alpha read for her, and I beta read, and she's a very good friend. 2020 would have been hell without her. I will say that. And she's an incredible writer. Like, she writes like a machine. She published, how many books last year? 10? It was a lot. She published a lot of books last year. And she's got more coming out this year. She just, wow. She's has the, Teddy Hyde? Oh, the song with the ghost, Sex with a Ghost, Teddy Hyde. You're a bad person, Hocus? I don't think so. I disagree with that. So Kat has the amazing ability to just write these incredible characters. Her narratives are all very character driven, and I love character driven narrative. So I highly recommend her. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you aren't losing any money by trying to read her books. Just whatever it is, don't get caught doing it. It's fine. You guys can all gush over Kat too, because she's amazing. Yeah, for sure. If you're buying them, the box set has all of the content. There's no deleted scenes in there. If you do end up purchasing the individual books, the deleted scenes are on her website. Love you too, Hocus. So you can read them on our website. They're just not like in line with the book. And I'll be reading probably both books on stream. They'll just be the kind of like, we'll have chats in between. I will stumble over my words. So, but yeah. And then if you want, like if you find out you're really enjoying her, oh, what did I make her the command for it? You can join us on her Discord. So that's Kat's Discord. Rexu! Hi, Rexu! How are you doing? I missed you last week. I'm very excited to get back to my regularly scheduled Warframe streams this coming week. Now that we have power. I'm behind. I'm not going to get that color palette from the special Valentine's event. There's no way I'll be able to collect enough bonds, but that's okay. We'll get other things done. I mean, I vote by them because I want to support Kat, but I totally also... Yes, so that's my Discord that Deggy's just brought up. That is my personal Discord, and then the exclamation KAK Discord is Kat's Discord. So, and then if you want access to her store page, it's exclamation KAK, and that will bring up her Amazon store page. Okay. Well, we are reading a romance novel, I will warn you. I know that can bother some people, so I will not be offended if you don't stay. But I'm happy to have you here. I really am, Rexu. It's good to see you. Yeah, no problem, Dougies. And then if you want to follow me on any other social media, it is exclamation social, and that will bring up my social media card. And you can follow me in all of the places, because there are a lot of places to follow me. I really only update some of them, but the option is there. Okay. I think I got a few more chapters in me, guys. I'm feeling pretty good. We're about to catch up. A few more chapters and we'll catch up to what I actually have recorded. Oh, no problem, Dougies. You have a good sleep. It was really good to see you. And we'll see you later. And if you want to listen to the rest of this, I will, of course, the VOD will be available on Twitch immediately after we're done. And I will have the VOD up on YouTube sometime tonight, tomorrow, somewhere in that time frame. So, you can check me out there and watch the VOD there. Okay. All right. Are we ready, guys? Where's the... Oh, you know what? I just realized my YouTube is not linked in on my social card. Give me just a second. I will grab that link for you. Unfortunately, I don't have enough subscribers yet on YouTube for a personal link. But here's the link to my actual YouTube. Once I get 100 subscribers on YouTube, I can make my own personalized link, and then it'll be a lot easier to find. I have to add my YouTube to my social card, so that is a thing I should remember to do. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, YouTube has a rule where you have to have 100 subscribers before you can make your own personalized link, and you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can monetize your channel, which does kind of suck. But it's all good. I appreciate having you guys here and punching my microphone, which, you know, I got to do at least once a night. That's pretty much a requirement at this point. All right. You guys ready for chapter 8? The day had come and gone quickly. She had set up the workshop well enough to feel like she could get started on things. It had taken most of the day to do it. Every time she tackled a pile of junk, she found it was only hiding another pile of junk. It was like the world's most densely packed antique store. She ran into Charles near the end of the day. Everyone else had gone home for the night, if the quiet nature of the building was any indication. He seemed like he was waiting for something. "Hey, Charles, what are you still doing here?" Oh, I'd hoped to run into you." He shrugged idly. "I want to say goodnight. I didn't like the idea of you slaving away in that dusty workshop without any human interaction at all." "I don't mind it." "Not a people person?" She matched his shrug with one of her own. "They're fine in small doses. I've learned how to fake it." She shot him a playful smile. "Mostly." "I'm right there with you. Good! We can hate people together." He laughed. Warmth sparkled in his eyes, and he leaned back against the column by the door. "Honestly, I wanted to see you before the end of the day." "Why?" "Because, unlike most people, I like you. I like being around you, and I want to do it more. I want to do it not on the clock." "Charles." I know, it's fast." He shoved his hands into his pockets and crossed one ankle over the other. He was lanky, and the pose reminded her how tall he was. But from that moment on the stage, she knew he was a lot stronger than he seemed. "I'll ask you this, though. Why is fast a bad thing?" She paused. She didn't have an answer for that. "Life is short. Working here in this place, seeing people come and go every day, never knowing them for longer than a few hours, it teaches you how fleeting everything really is. Even the guides come and go, and it seems like they're never really here. Pretty soon, they're only part of the story. I'm impatient. Really impatient. So, I've learned to snatch an opportunity when I see one." "I'm an opportunity?" She shot him a glance. He rolled his eyes. "Alice, I get excited when I see you. I want to be near you. I want to talk to you. I want to learn about you. I want to kiss you. I want to see every inch of that tattoo of yours. Shit, I want to kiss every inch of that tattoo of yours. Then..." "Charles!" She had to stop him before he went too far. It was making not only her face heat up. Damn it all. She'd love to deny that she didn't also want him to do everything he said, but she very much did. He was fascinating. It was quick. It was probably a terrible decision. He was also her goddamn boss. He sighed. I'm sorry. I'll stop. His shoulders slumped, and his head hung low. I'll leave you alone. I'll stop the flirt. Blah, 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 blah. I'll leave you alone. I'll stop the flirting. No, that was worse. Leaving her alone was exactly not the thing she wanted. But stringing him along because she couldn't handle relationships was not fair to him. Wait. He looked up at her without lifting his head. He tried to look forlorn, but she could see a hint of his mischief. She narrowed an eye at him. Are you calling my bluff? Maybe. His straight face cracked into a smile. He really had a lousy poker face. Okay, yes. Alice wasn't the kind of person who took risks. She wasn't the kind of person who put herself out on a ledge. She wasn't the kind of person who allowed herself to be hurt or rejected. If she never tried to achieve anything, she couldn't ever fail, right? But then I'll always be stuck in the rut of my life. She paused nervously. If I made dinner for 2 tomorrow night, would you? Yes! He cut her off, his overeager answer making her jump. I mean, yes, of course. I'd love to. That sounds grand. Also because I'm a shit cook, and I'd ruin whatever I tried to make. She laughed and smiled. He was like the cat who had eaten the canary and regretted absolutely nothing. His happiness was contagious, and she found herself excited for it. Any favorites? What do you make better than anything else? Homemade pasta. I haven't had pasta from scratch in... He thought it over. Ever. Now it was her turn to beam. Then that's what we'll do. He took her hand and leaned down to place a kiss on the back of her knuckles, as slowly and as passionately as he had done the previous night. Then with that wonderful news, I'll say goodnight. He straightened and turned to look out at the foyer. Don't get jealous, Uncle, and keep your paws off. I call dibs. She laughed and swatted at him again. You're the worst. And the best. He opened the door for her. I have to get my stuff before I go. Have a great night, Alice. I'll see you tomorrow. She walked out, still smiling, and said goodbye to him. Her smile stayed with her all the rest of the evening. The second night in the house was about as intimidating as the first. She got up off her sofa at around 10:50 at night, paused her video game, threw on her coat, and double-checked to make sure she still had the knife in her pocket. Not like she thought it would be much use against a ghost, but it was trouble of the more living and breathing variety that worried her more than Uncle Julian. For better or worse, if the stories were to be believed, the ghost was the bigger threat. Hopefully she wouldn't accidentally stab Charles in the middle of one of his ill-conceived pranks. Heading up the stairs to the house, she let herself in, unalarmed the beeping panel, and flipped on the lights. Good evening, she announced to the house. Or Julian. Or Charles. Or whatever. The first third of her walk went without any problems. Then the second third. Maybe the ghost was still sleeping. Still, she talked idly to the house as she walked, listing off all the things she was going to start working on repairing over the next day or two. I do really appreciate the use of your workshop. I hope you don't mind that I'm cleaning up. I need some space to work. I promise I won't throw anything out. She tucked her hands into her pockets and found herself idly smiling again. It was at the thought of Charles sneaking up on her when she was working down there. It was really at the thought of him in general. Damn it all, she liked him. She really liked him. She was crushing on her boss. She had asked him over for dinner, for fuck's sake. Exactly. Damn it. Hold on, let me reread that. I'm getting tongue-tied. She had asked him over for dinner, for fuck's sake. Exactly. No, damn it. Bad, Alice, bad. He was sweet. He was funny. He was a devil, an imp, and a cherub all at the same time. He lit up like a light bulb every time she was nice to him. But she wanted to follow that streak of darkness she saw in him and see how deep it ran. Don't laugh at my tongue getting tied, Maria. I see you there, laughing at me. It's okay, at least it's not in Russian accents. It had been a long time since she'd been in a relationship. It had been a long time since she dated. It never quite worked out, and she didn't care enough to really try. She got accustomed to being lonely. It was her way of life. But, presented with such a handsome alternative, it was hard to say no. He had asked to kiss her, and she was so very close to saying yes. It's fast, but hey, so what? Life's fast. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's better to grab the bull by the horns, or in this case, the boss by the ding! Ah, ha, ha. It was the last 10% of her walk that things took a left turn. She screamed at the sudden sound and fell back against the wall to her left. One of the old fortune teller boxes had turned itself on, and with a loud mechanical ding and an equally mechanical laugh, had come to life on its own. A little card dispensed out of the front and landed in the little tray. The mannequin in the box, dressed to look like Julian Strand, of course, moved its arm from left to right, posed finger pointing down at the array of playing cards in front of him, and slowly returned to its original position. God damn son of a bitch, this place is going to kill me! She let out a grunt and straightened. She should keep walking. The thing had a short in its system, and it had gone off by accident. She'd take a look at it in the morning. She almost kept walking. Almost. But the card was sitting there. Emblazoned on the back it read, "Your fortune awaits," in large decorative letters. Knowing this was stupid, and only inviting trouble, she let out a beleaguered sigh and picked up the card. She expected it to say something trite and silly, probably a limerick, and a list of what her lucky numbers were supposed to be. Instead, on the face of it, beneath Julian Strand's ubiquitous and ever-present logo read, "Welcome to my home, Alice." She dropped the card. It slipped from her fingers as she took a step back from it in horror. She swallowed the rock in her throat and tried to put her heart back in her chest where it belonged, and not up by her ears. It was a prank. It had to be. It was only Charles screwing with her. He could have printed a custom card and fed it into the machine after closing and was triggering it remotely. She forced herself to breathe, and she took a step closer to pick the card up off the ground. Reading it again, she had almost expected the note to change. No luck. Ding! Ah, ha, ha! Alice jumped in surprise again, and a little card dispensed out the front. With a groan, she cringed and didn't know what else to do. "This isn't funny, Charles!" She picked up the card. "I'm not Charles." With a frightened whine, she stood there and started to shake in fear. She had said that after the card had dispensed, not before. It had responded to something she had said. That wasn't possible. Charles had predicted what she was going to say, that was all. Like a mentalist, reading people's minds and knowing what card they picked. She had already blamed him for the clock and the stunt last night, so of course, he knew she'd blame him tonight. It was a stupid trick. That was all. Magic seemed impossible until she knew how it was done. Then it seemed like child's play. Before the thing could go off again, she opened the front of the machine and revealed its guts. A coin receiver, some electronics, a bunch of gears, and a stack of cards. She tore the stack out of the machine, making sure to leave not a single one behind. She began flipping through them from top to bottom. They were all normal, all canned, stupid, silly fortunes that someone would expect to pull out of a machine. You will be lucky in love. You will find happiness on the horizon. You will find great enjoyment in unexpected places. None of them had Julian's logo on them. Each of the headers had a crystal ball icon, not the JS he liked to stick on everything. She shuffled through the whole deck and dug around in the machine for more. She couldn't find any trick slots or places where a card might dispense in secret. Shoving the stack back in the machine, she shut the front door with another heavy sigh. Ding! Ah, ha, ha. She pulled in a startled breath and fell back onto her ass from where she had been crouching. A card fell into the slot. I hate you. I really, really do. She reached out to pick up the card, needing to know what it had said. needing to know what it said, even if she dreaded it at the same time. "Do you like my gift?" it read. Gift? It took her a second to realize what he was talking about. The clock. Julian Strand, the ghost of a dead man, was taking credit for the clock she had found in the carriage house. She stared at the card, dumbfounded. It took her a long time to respond. "I love it. Alice in Wonderland is my favorite book. I'm not sure how you knew that, but thanks. No one's ever made me anything before." Silence. Thank fuck. Standing, she brushed herself off and looked down at the 3 cards in her hand before tucking them into her pocket. It was when she turned to walk away that it went off again. She still jumped nearly 2 inches in the air when it did. Ding! Ah, ha, ha. She groaned, put her head in her hands, and turned back around to watch the mannequin drift its hand over the cards and back. She leaned down to pick up the card. "You're very welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I think we're going to be very good friends." She left the room and the building before it had a chance to go off one more time. She was perfect. Utterly perfect. So afraid, yet so brave. Most would have been sent running from his home in hysterics at the first sign of trouble, but she stayed to read his notes. Not once, twice, or thrice, but 4 times she picked up his cards and kept them, no less. Beautiful girl. How he wanted her. He followed her as she exited his home. She was walking double time, but was not frantic. He stayed close to her as she returned to the carriage house and walked inside. She collapsed on the sofa, burying her head in her hands. The fat and fluffy, oversized cat looked up at him, blinked lazily, meowed, and went to join his owner on the sofa. She picked him up and hugged him to her, taking solace in the animal's presence. He was jealous of the little thing. How he wanted to be the one in her arms, being clutched for comfort. Schooling himself, reminding himself that he was playing the long game, he lurked by the wall and watched. "What have I gotten myself into, Loki?" she murmured to the cat. The cat only purred loudly in response and nuzzled its head against her chin. It was blissfully unaware of what she had seen, and was only happy for the sudden influx of attention. Oh, to be the one in your lap instead. She fished the 4 fortunes he had given her out of her pocket and held them in her hand like they were poker cards. She read them over and over again, as if trying to find a clue to how they had been produced. "Someday you'll know. Then you'll understand that ghosts are not the only thing that's real." After a long moment, she put down the cat to shrug out of her coat, take off her shoes, and wandered tiredly and dejectedly upstairs to bed. He might not be able to curl up in her lap and feel her fingers through his hair like the cat enjoyed, but he had no plans to leave her this night either. Her presence next to his had become a welcome, wonderful, and blissful diversion from the lengthy stretches of emptiness he had known. When she placed the cards next to the clock he had carved for her, his heart blossomed. She did not throw them out. She did not burn them. She kept them, and on her nightstand, no less. "Are you as intrigued by me as I am besotted with you, little rabbit?" Hope beat in him like a drum, like his heart might have done if he still owned one. She fell asleep, and when her breathing became regular and deep, he slipped in beside her and cradled her in his arms. She nuzzled into him, guileless and innocent, unaware of what she had done, but the action made him happier than he could remember being in a very long time, if ever. "Oh, Alice, I think I'm in love." I agree. The fortune teller scene is a fantastic scene. Ah. Maybe I have 1 or 2 more chapters in me, I think, before I gotta call it a night, guys. I'm getting more tongue twisted as I keep going. Have to tell Kat that I have the wrong the wrong Word document. Thank you. Somehow, it's funny. Somehow it's easier to just like read through and just keep talking past my mistakes instead of like trying to stop and then redo them so that there's a clean recording. Oh man. Okay. Yes, well, I have 1 more chapter in me for sure. We'll reevaluate after chapter 9. I think chapter 9 is a particularly long chapter. Oh, well, thank you, Ellie. Yeah, it's just hard to keep talking that long. It is a lot. It's a lot of work to keep going, but I will read the book all the way through. It'll just take time. But I definitely have 1 more chapter in me. If I remember correctly, chapter 9 is a long chapter compared to some of the other ones. So we'll do chapter 9 and we'll see how we feel after chapter 9. We're at the 40%, right now we're at the 40% mark of the book, so we're doing pretty good, I think. Chapter 9. The day was going remarkably well. Alice found herself smiling more often than not, and honestly couldn't remember the last time that it had happened during the workday. She had spent the early afternoon wandering around with her laptop, taking stock of all the things that needed some work. Even after the weirdness of the previous night, she didn't let it sway her. The ghost of Julian had, if it was real, and wasn't Charles messing with her again, welcomed her here. She kept the cards he had given her in order and stacked them by the clock he claimed he made for her. It was still probably Charles. She'd slap him silly when he finally revealed he was behind it all. But for the time being, she would put up with all as best she could. It was his own particularly twisted method of flirting with her. It made for some exciting times, that was for sure. But for now, she would do her day job. For the first time in her life, she had a job she was excited to do, including repairing silly old automata. I don't know why I say it that like. I think it's actually pronounced automata. I say automata first, and then I have to stop and like re-record automata. Including repairing silly old automata. The items that needed the most repair was a collection of Nickelodeons. Some of them were slideshows of dorky photographs, many of them considered risque for turn of the 20th century morals. But her favorites were the old-fashioned vignettes that took a nickel and played out a little scene, like dollhouses in glass cases, with wooden figurines going through the motions. Most of them were melodramatic and spectacularized nonsense, like the hangman, or really not politically correct anymore things like the opium den. The hangman was the one she decided she was going to work on first. It displayed a model of the front of a jail, and after she had inserted a coin she got a pile from the front desk to work with, the double door swung open. A figurine in a hood was supposed to ring a tiny bell. Then another figurine on gallows fell to its miniaturized death on a noose. The doors shut, then it would reset. The issue was that the hangman's arm wasn't moving anymore. She could see it twitching, but the connection at the shoulder had clearly worn out. Some superglue, or a new joint, and it would be good to go. She put it at the top of her list. A few more were in bad shape and in need of repairs, but they weren't quick fixes. The repairs were far more involved, and she would probably have to take them out of the tourist path to work on them. She would have to talk to Charles and ask him if she was allowed to work on the bigger, immovable machinima during the open hours. She stopped in the ballroom to place her laptop on the large grand piano by one wall. It was the one Charles had warned her sometimes played on its own. That wouldn't be interesting in a building of instruments that did exactly that, except he claimed that this one was normal. A large and elaborate JS was painted on the top of the piano in purple and copper. The ballroom was beautiful, overly detailed and eerie like the rest of the place. Large stained glass windows lined one wall that faced out the back of the house. The middle one showed an array of white doves and rabbits flying out of a hat. Adorable. The left and the right ones had scrollwork that showed a musical staff written on it. Each scroll had 4 notes written on them. Interesting. She walked to the piano and played the notes she read. They definitely went together, and it was definitely a song. She didn't recognize it, but it was a sad tune in a minor key. When she played the last note, a chord pressed down to her left, entirely on its own. It was 4 in the afternoon. She squealed and jumped back and watched as the keys lifted. Whatever ghostly hand had pressed them down had released them. Ghosts aren't real. It's a magic trick. It's probably programmed to do that if you push the right notes. It's written on the goddamn wall, after all. It was probably a parlor trick to entertain guests. But now she wanted to make sure. She unlocked the casters and put her hands on the side of the piano and pushed it. The casters were well kept, and it moved easily. It probably got rolled around the room frequently for special events. She pushed it about 1 foot or 2 away and studied the floor where it had been. No wires. That didn't mean much. She leaned down and fished through her pockets for her Leatherman multi-tool. It had a magnet on the back of it used to keep screws from wandering off, but it would be perfect for finding another magnet in the floor. Wireless power and signal or something like that. She swept it across the floor where the wheels had been and found nothing. Standing, she tapped her foot on the surface. Nothing but the echo. She moved the bench to its proper place at the keys. She opened it, checking for anything. Nothing except sheet music and a few paper cocktail napkins that had been put in there and clearly long forgotten. Shutting it, she moved her laptop to the bench and lifted the lid of the piano, putting up the wooden arm to keep it from crashing back down. The image of a ghostly force yanking the wood bar out with her arms in the thing played in her head. "Please don't break my hands, Julian," she muttered. "I need them to do my job, and my job is to help you." Silence. She poked around inside the piano looking for anything that might be a hint as to how it had played itself. Wires, actuators, tubes, anything. Nothing. It was a normal piano. She crawled under the piano and tapped on the underside. Nothing. With a sigh, she crawled back out and put her hands on her hips. "All right, Julian 1, Alice 0. I'm not giving up. I'll figure this one out." She lowered the lid of the piano again and, picking up her laptop, headed out of the room. 10 feet down the hallway, she heard the same chord play itself again. She paused and shut her eyes, trying to keep herself from breaking out in a sweat, but her heart still pounded quicker. She startled easily, but she didn't think she frightened easily. Best case, it's only really clever mechanics and a guy whose idea of flirting is scaring you. Worst case, it's a dead guy who likes to play pranks and maybe kill people, if the legends are true. She chewed on her lip. She'd always assumed it was the first category, and she still did, but what if it was the latter? What, was she in danger? Whatever had slammed into the door the other night had done so, violently. What if it wasn't Charles? What if it really was Julian? "Don't be an idiot, Alice. You're falling for the stupid illusions." She let out a sigh and walked away, vowing she would come back tonight and dismantle that damn piano if she needed to. She was going to prove to herself that there was always a trick to every illusion. She simply needed to find it. 7:30 on the dot, and there was a knock on the door of the carriage house. She left the kitchen to answer it. There was Charles, and he was carrying a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers. "Oh, Charles," she smiled. "You shouldn't have." "But I wanted to." He held them out to her. They were roses dyed a deep purple and accented with bright orange-yellow buds of a flower she honestly didn't know the name of. She was terrible with flower names. She knew the big important ones, but after that, they were just pretty. She went to take it and realized both her hands were covered in flour. She laughed and he joined her. "I'll find a vase," he said as she gestured to welcome him in. He shut the door behind himself. "I've never had fresh pasta before." "It really isn't that hard to make. You caught me in the middle of kneading the dough." She walked to the kitchen and went back to doing exactly that. Then it has to sit for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. "Plenty of time to talk. I like it." He opened exactly the right cabinet to find a large glass vase on the first try. She shouldn't have been surprised. He owned the place after all. He filled it with water from the sink and, unwrapping the bouquet, placed the flowers in it and placed it on the counter that separated the kitchen from the little dinette. "They're beautiful, Charles. Thank you." "You're very welcome." He leaned up on the counter near her and watched her work. She was folding the pasta over itself and pressing down with the heel of her hand again and again. "Do you cook often?" "I like to when I get the chance." "What's your favorite thing to make?" "I love baking. I think pies, honestly." "I love pie." He smiled, that mischievous expression that he clearly loved to wear and wore so well. "Okay. What's your best recipe?" "I get the feeling that no matter what I tell you, you're going to say it's your favorite." She shot him a coy smile. "Aren't you?" His lips formed a thin line as he put on a show of false pouting. "Am I that obvious?" "You're an enormous flirt." "That too." He grinned. "Fine. I'll go first then. Pumpkin." She shot him a glare. "What?" He put his hand to his chest. Fingers splayed. She got distracted for a moment, looking at his hands. Thin-fingered and long like the rest of him, but clearly powerful. He was a magician. Years of practice. She snapped herself back into what he was saying before she ended up blushing. He kept talking. "Don't give me that look. I'm not a mentalist. I never had the gift for it." "Pumpkin is my favorite to make," she confirmed. "I roast sugar pumpkins to make the puree. It's the best way to get a pie that doesn't taste like store-bought cardboard." "If you still work here around Thanksgiving, and since you said you weren't going home, maybe we could have a little holiday for two." He fished through a drawer for a corkscrew and began opening the bottle of wine he had bought. She had one in the fridge, too. She wasn't sure if it was smart to go through 2 bottles of wine with her incredibly attractive boss in the room, so she kept that to herself. "If I still work here, are you thinking about firing me?" She figured he wasn't, so she didn't mind teasing him. "Well, you seem to think nepotism is a problem. If I fire you, then your silly 'you're my boss' excuse doesn't hold up. Then maybe you'll let me do what I want to do." "Which is?" She couldn't help it. "You don't want to know." He shot her a devilish look. "It might scare you more than Uncle Julian." That brought warmth to her cheeks, and she couldn't keep eye contact with him. She turned her head down to finish kneading the dough. She balled it, wrapped it in saran wrap, and set it to the side. The gluten in the dough had to calm down for a bit before she could run it through her pasta machine. It was one of the few kitchen gadgets she owned. It had belonged to her grandmother, and she loved it. It'd probably never die. Some things were made to last. Charles snickered at her blush. Anyway, no. I mean, if you don't quit here first." "Why would I quit?" "The ghost. From the sounds of things, he's taken a shining to you. You've been here 3 days and run into him 3 times. The clock, the chair in her apartment, the door slamming last night. 5 times, she corrected him. "What happened?" "Last night, I got some custom printed cards out of a fortune teller." "What did they say?" "They were welcoming me here. Nothing threatening. He asked if I liked his gift. The clock." "And what's the 5th?" "The piano in the ballroom. I played a few notes on it, and it played me back a chord. I moved the piano. I looked inside and underneath, in the bench, everything. Short of trying to dismantle it, I don't know how it could be done." "It's a normal grand piano. I can show you the purchase receipts for it. We bought it a few years ago for weddings and banquets. Piano players have a real hard time sitting at something with belts and pulleys. The action on the keys is all wrong for them. We got a normal one for them to use for events." "What about the logo painted on the lid?" Charles shrugged. I painted that on there. People expect it. He stuck his stupid monogram on everything, so I'm trying to keep up the tradition. It helps it blend in and feel like it's a part of the building. She hung her head. That made perfect sense. Every time she thought she had it figured out, he poked holes into her theories until they deflated. Are you lying to me? Nope. Wish I was. Did it scare you? I mean, sure, it's not normal to have a piano play itself. It's not normal for any of this to happen. She washed her hands but didn't bother cleaning the counter. She'd need to roll out the pasta dough, and she would end up making a mess. But I haven't started crying yet, if that's what you're asking. You haven't panicked because you think it's all a trick. What if you knew it was real? Charles pulled down 2 wine glasses and poured one for each of them. What if you knew Julian was really the cause? What do you think you would do? She paused and thought it over. Probably have a fit in the moment. I'd like to think I'd be brave, but it's impossible to know until it happens. People like to believe they're a lot tougher than they really are. Wise words, but okay. Once the shock wore off, then what? You're worried I'll get into my car and never come back. Exactly. He walked up to her until he was a few inches away. Exactly that. His closeness was surprising, and she found herself craning her head back to look up at him. He was so damn tall. Probably 6'4", maybe a little less. He was thin, so it made him look even taller. Those hazel eyes of his were burning into her, and he had flicked the switch from silly debonair Charles to incredibly intense Charles, like a light bulb. Well, She trailed off, not knowing how to finish. It's happened before, he said quietly, setting down his wine glass to hover a hand over her cheek. With guides. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the warmth from his skin. People see him, or he does something truly impossible, then they never come back. And I don't want that to happen to you. I like you, Alice. I like you a great deal. I want to get to know you in many, many ways. His lips twisted up impishly. She felt her face go warm, and she knew she was blushing. I want you to stay. I want you to stay very badly. And if Uncle Julian chases you off... He sighed. I don't know what I'll do. We've just met. She was making excuses again. We don't know anything about each other. I want to know everything about you. I plan on learning every detail over dinner, and vice versa. But I have to ask you something again. You didn't answer me yesterday. What? You said it's too fast, and I asked why it mattered. Does it really matter? Or are you simply afraid? He finally placed his palm against her cheek. She pulled in a sharp breath as he did, but didn't pull back. He ran his thumb along her cheekbone. Christ, it felt so good. Was she afraid? She let her eyes slip shut as she felt his breath wash over her. He leaned in for a kiss, and this time, she didn't have the heart to tell him to stop. She wanted him. She wanted this. She was afraid, but now it didn't outweigh her desire to feel him. May I kiss you, Alice? He asked quietly, and she could feel him hovering an inch away from her. He stepped closer, and she let her hands rest against his chest, not to push him away, but to gently curl her fingers into the fabric of his white button-down shirt. Her stomach flipped at his words, and she felt weak in the knees. Literally weak in the knees. She didn't even think that was possible. She thought it was a myth. Well, he was so impatient. He had warned her, to be fair. Yes, she whispered. And he did. He pressed his lips to hers. She'd expected something soft, tender, something exploratory for a first kiss. Not to be bowled over in traffic by a runaway 18-wheeler. He kissed her like he was dying, and she was his only hope. It was passionate, it was deep, and it was full of fire that threatened to consume her. She moaned quietly against his lips as she clung to him for dear life. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, and she melted against him. He really was stronger than he looked. His build didn't belie the muscle he clearly had, like a swimmer or a soccer player. He tilted his head to the side to deepen the kiss, as if it were possible. He cradled the back of her head in his hand, weaving his fingers into her hair. When they fisted and pulled, she gasped, and he took the opportunity of her parted lips to slip his tongue into her mouth. Holy fuck! He urged her back against the lip of the counter, bracing her there, and pressed himself firmly against her. He might be playing with her, flirting and hoping to score some tail from her as an easy diversion, but she no longer doubted that he wanted her. What was pressed up against her upper thigh was proof of that. It was when his hand slipped up the back of her shirt, brushing against her bare skin, that she finally made a sound of protest and gently nudged him back. He growled loudly. A second nudge from her, and he pushed back from her obediently. His hazel eyes were dark and half-lidded in heated passion. His chest was heaving as he tried to catch his breath, and so was hers. It was then she realized how intensely she wanted him. Fire had pooled in her body, and she had instantly reacted to his touch and his kiss. She swallowed thickly, tasting him, rich and tangy, like cloves. "Too fast?" he asked huskily, his voice thick. "Too fast." She sounded out of breath. She was. He was still caging her in, his arms on either side of her on the counter, no longer touching her, but so close he might as well have been. He was so warm and so overpowering. It took every ounce of her not to cave in and go along for the ride. And if how he kissed her, their first kiss no less, had been any indication, it was going to be one hell of a ride. The thought made her face go warm again, and that dangerous fire in her burned brighter. She swallowed the rock in her throat. "Damn," he sighed, and took a step back from her. Picking up his wine glass, he downed the whole thing in one go. She laughed as he poured himself another. "Sorry." "Nothing to apologize for. We can take it slow." "This isn't slow." "It is for me." He handed her the other glass with the same fiendish smile. "If I had my way, well, you're happier not knowing. We should probably wait until after dinner anyway." She gratefully drank some of the wine. She didn't down the whole glass like he did, but she was close. It felt like a relief. "Do you come on this strong to everybody?" "Who's everybody?" He leaned up on the counter again. "Are you saying you think I sleep around?" "Well..." He laughed and walked away from the kitchen to go drop onto the sofa, stretching out sideways. Good God, he was beautiful. "You think, because I'm flirting with you, that I must flirt with everybody?" "Yep." "You don't get attention frequently, do you?" He sipped his second glass of wine. She topped herself off and followed him to go sit in the armchair that sat perpendicular to the sofa, the arms nearly touching. The pasta sauce was simmering, the garlic bread was in the oven and waiting, and they still had a while to go before she could make the rest of their meal. She had put out a bowl of chips, and he reached over and grabbed a handful and munched on them. With the way he had eaten the pizza, she made sure to have snacks ready. "I don't," she admitted. Attention from men wasn't normal for her. "Why not? You're gorgeous." She laughed. "I'm not, but thank you." Her face went warm again, and she hid it the best she could by tipping her head down and letting her hair fall across her cheeks. "Everyone's loss, my gain." He was watching her fiendishly again, as if he were plotting terrible, wicked, evil schemes. It only made her face grow hotter. "There's someone naughty in that cage you've locked her in. Someone you've hidden away. Your tattoo tells me that much. Not to mention the way you kiss. You're wilder than you've ever let yourself be. I'm gonna pick the lock and let her out to play." Something told her he was going to make good on that promise, whether she liked it or not. Yes, you have good time, Dougie. Good timing. Oh, that was the end of chapter 9. I feel like that's a good place to stop. My mouth is getting tired from doing work. I hope you guys had fun tonight. I don't usually raid after reading streams, so we probably won't tonight. Last week was kind of an exception. But I hope you guys had fun. I will be back, of course, next week, Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Time, to read some more. We'll get through the whole book. We're getting close to the halfway point, so, you know, We're doing good work. Oh, you don't ever realize how much water you need to drink until you talk for 2.5 hours straight. Well, okay. So next week, 6 p.m. Central Time, we'll go back to reading this. Yay, I'm glad you had fun, Marvy. Night, Dougies. You be good, okay? Or bad. You can be bad, it's fine. We'll be back on Tuesday night, again, 6 p.m. Central Time. Normal streaming schedule. We'll be playing Warframe on Tuesday because I have some catch up to do in Warframe. You guys are very welcome. I love reading for you all, and I had a blast. Yes, it's a very good place to pick up next week. Oh, good. Yes, headphones. You probably want those. Hopefully, I don't get myself kicked off of Twitch next week. All right, so Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, Warframe, gonna be my normal Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule, and yeah, we will see how it goes next week. I have some new equipment to make my avatar move and look really cool, so hopefully that works out really well. And I had a blast, you guys. Don't forget to check out Kat's book. So I know pretty much all of you are like avid fans, but just in case. Love you too, Hocus Pocus. Just in case, there is the link to Kat's Amazon page, so make sure to give her some love. All of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have a subscription, they're free on Kindle Unlimited. But if not, they're very reasonably priced and absolutely worth it. So, you guys have a great night and a good evening, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. Goodbye.